Hi everyone, Keren here from tuppencecoloured.co.uk. Today's project is this shadow box card, which folds flat to go into an envelope so that it's not too expensive to post, but when you get it at the other end it pops up so you get that wow effect. Inside the card you can see I've done some Aurora Borealis sponging, and I'm going to show you how to do that as well, so stick with me and we'll get started. I want to create a Aurora Borealis background for my card, so I've got my piece of Whisper White card and I'm going to start sponging over it with, and I'm going to start first of all with some Daffodil Delight. I'm working on a cross sheet. I'm going to go pretty much all over with Daffodil Delight because it will help blend in the colours later on. Not going to go too far down to the bottom of the card because that I hope is going to be covered. So okay, so that's finished with the Daffodil Delight, and I'm going to come in with my next brightest colour, which is a tempting turquoise. The cat is on the prowl, so she may decide to make an appearance at any time. And I'm pulling straight down. Oops, bent my card, and I want to leave some of the yellow there. And I'm pulling. Bending up my card as I'm doing it. Okay, so quite like that. Okay. So now I've got Night of Navy. And I'm going to keep that more to the edge of the card. And finally, just a little bit, a very little bit of the Elegant Eggplant. I'm going to go right in the corner with the Elegant Eggplant because that's how I want it to look. And that is looking quite Aurora Borealis-y. And I'm going to come back in with Daffodil Delight and go right over the top of it and blend it all together. Okay, so I'm actually liking that quite a bit, so I'm going to let that sit on one side to dry, and we'll come have two pieces of Night of Navy cardstock, which are 6 inches by 5.5 inches, and I'm going to score them, and I'm going to score at 1/2 inch and at 5.5 inches, and then I'm going to turn over and I'm going to score it at 1 inch and 5 inches. I can do the same on this one. So I'm going to score it at 1/2 inch and 5.5 inches, and I'm going to turn it over and score again at 1 inch and at 5 inches. And the reason why I've turned it over and didn't just score straight across is because when you score card, it wants to fold up, it wants to fold that way, and if you fold it in the opposite direction, if you fold it against the fold, it's more liable to crack. So I'm going to turn that one up, and then these pieces I'm going to fold the opposite direction.
Okay, so this piece is going to be the back. I'm not going to fold this one just for a minute because this is going to be the front piece of the card, and I want to do some more things to it before I actually fold it. So I'm going to put my Simply Scored away and we'll come back in a minute. This is a piece of silver DSP which I've cut to 3 3/4 inches by 5 1/4 inches, and it's going to be the mat that sits on the front of my finished card. Now I need to cut an aperture in it, and it has to be a pretty precise size because it has to be big enough for this to sit on and not to fall through. If it's too small. This is a piece of silver DSP which I've cut to 3 3/4 inches by 5 1/4 inches. It's going to be the mat that sits on the front of my card, and I need to cut an aperture in it that's a pretty precise size because it needs to be big enough so that you can see through all of the window panes, but not so big that the card actually falls through it. So it needs to be quite a precise size. So what I've done, I made myself a template, this is just a piece of Common Garden scrap card, and I folded it in half that way and in half that way so that I had the center, and I took my die cut and I placed it over the top of it, and I traced into the 4 corners, and then I cut it out. If I turn it over, you can see I cut out so that it was just inside the lines that I'd drawn. Sorry, just outside, so it's just a little bit bigger than the interior of the frame, and I'm using this as my template. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to align it up, and then I'm using the lines on my grid paper to help me position this. Grid paper's wonderful stuff. It's really, really useful. I would be lost without it. Okay, so I think that's about where I want my aperture to be, and I'm going to draw around my template. Okay, so now I could either cut that out with a craft knife, but I've got my cutter here, my trimmer here, my Stampin' trimmer, and just going to need to get my reading glasses. Give me a minute, otherwise I just can't see, and you will have my head in the way. Alright, so I'm lining that up so that I can just see, it's just in here, the line that I've just drawn, and I'm going to pick up my cutting blade and I'm going to drop it down so that the point is right there where the two meet, the corners meet, and right here is where I'm going to stop. So I'm going to start and I'm going to stop where my little pointer is. So I'm going to turn that round, and I'm going to start my blade on the bit that I've just cut, and I'm going to cut down to where the lines intersect, and I'm going to go all the way around, making sure every time that my template line is centered in that little window there, and turn it round, push it out of the way for a moment, lift it up, bring it across, so it won't actually cut until you put pressure on it. So when I take that up now, that's close enough. I may need to come in with my snips. Nope, it's going to come out. And there, my window frame sits nicely on top of it. Okay. So now I'm going to place that, center that on top of my background card, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to cut out that the blue aperture bit, and I'll see you in a minute. There's my aperture. You may need to go in and tidy up with scissors depending on how sharp your blade is. Mine, I think, needs to be replaced. And here's my die cut. So now I'm going to stick the die cut over the aperture.
and I'm going to use Tombow because I want a good stick, and also I want the flexibility that a wet glue gives, which doesn't want to come out of the, there we are, whoops, now it wants to come out too much out of the bottle. Okay, I'm just going to wipe that away with the nozzle and push that down here. Got a bit of a smooch on the front there, and I'm placing that very carefully over the aperture, and there's the front of my card. Now I'm toying. That's firmly stuck down now, so before I go and to the next step, that's firmly stuck down now, so this is a good time now to decorate the front of the card, because it's much easier to do it at this stage than after, when everything's all put together. So I'm going to be using one of the stamps from the Holly Jolly Greetings, and you can get that on its own, or you can get it as a bundle with the Christmas Greetings thinlets. So, and I've die cut myself the word peace using the thinlet, and I'm going to be using Peace on Earth. Now I like this set very much because you can kind of mix and match the sentiments to get them the way you want it. So you can have you know, have a jolly holly Christmas, or you can have season of peace, or you can have merry wishes, merry moments, peace on earth, wishing you peace, wishing you merry moment. You can, you know, basically you can just mix and match to suit yourself. But I want to do peace on earth, so I've got the on earth sentiment onto my block, and I've got my Night of Navy ink pad, and I cut myself a strip of Whisper White card, which that's not the piece I wanted, that's much too small. Where is it? There it is, that's the one I wanted. Put that one out of the way, use that another day. So I'm going to ink up a gentle tapping my sentiment, and I'm going to apply that onto my Whisper White card and count 1, 2, 3. And I've smudged it. Drat. But you know what? Magic two-sided paper. So let's try again. 2, 3. That's much more like it. But it's not terribly straight, but that doesn't matter because I'm going to cut it out with my word label punch. And I'm going to centre that up. And there it is. So let's have a little moment now while I arrange these together. So I think that's what I like. So let's do my die cut first of all, and I've gone and left my fine tip glue on the other side of the room. It doesn't matter, Tombow will work just as well. It's just a little bit, just have to be a little bit more careful with it, that's all. Apply that underneath the windowsill, and I could use glue dots here, but since I've got the Tombow out anyway, I may as well use it. And I'm going to add one of our snowflake embellishments in the corner. And for this you do need either Tombow or a glue dot, because snail just won't cut it. Okay. There we go. Now I'm going to set that on one side, so that the glue can harden up while I work on the next bit of the card. Okay, so for the inside of the card, here's a piece of the card which I've given the Aurora Borealis treatment, and I've got a Whisper White stamp pad, and I'm using this stamp, which is also from the Holly Jolly Greetings, and I'm going to stamp some stars. Okay. Okay, now I've die cut myself a piece of Whisper White using the Jingle All the Way edgelet set, and I'm going to glue that onto the Aurora Borealis card, and I'm going to put little dobs on the roofs of the little houses so that they don't flop around. And where do I want those? Like that, I think. So I'm going to bring in my snips. I'm going to turn that over. I'm just going to trim that piece off. Alright, I'll also cut it rather flush along there. Alright, so now this is going to go into the middle of the back piece of my card, and my front is going to come on like that, so I want to have a good view through there, and I think that's just about right actually. So, and again I'm using Tombow. I could use Snail, but Tombow does give you that little bit of wiggle room, and in this case I think I would like a little bit of wiggle room, because otherwise you can bet that I will put this in exactly the wrong place. I think that's about right. Let's check that up again. I think I could do with going up just a teensy tiny bit, and that is why I used the Tombow, and yeah, I'm happy with that. So for a finishing touch, we'll have a nice big bright jewel in the sky for a star, and one more thing before we put it all together. I put some tear and tape on the back of the card around the window frame, and I've cut myself a piece of acetate which I cut to 3 by 3.5 inches, so that it goes over. This bit is optional, but I did think that it just gave it a little bit of, made it look a little bit more special. Yeah, stick that down, and now it's time to assemble them together. So I'm finally going to go in and train the creases on the front of my card. Okay, so that they are like that, and there's the back of my card. I want to make sure they're both right sides up, and I'm going to join them together. And I'm not taking the back of the tear and tape all the way, I'm just taking a little bit down and just folding over the backing tape, because once this stuff grabs, it grabs, and I want to make sure that that is lined up properly. So I'm going to work on the one side first. I'm not going to try and line up two sides together. Push that against the floor, so that that's the floor, the table, so that I've got my bottom edges in line, and I'm happy with that now. So now I can take that away, and that's that side, and I'm going to do the same on the card on this side. Make sure that everything's all lined up nicely before I press that down, and I take the backing tape away, and there is my card. And I think that's very, very pretty, and it will fold flat to go in an envelope, but when your recipient gets it, up it pops, and it can look through the window to the scene inside. I think that's very, very pretty. So here's the finished card, and I do hope you've enjoyed seeing how I made this card, and I do hope that you'll have a try at making one yourself. And if you want to find out more, then please do by all means visit my blog. If you've liked what you've seen, then I would love for you to give me a like. I would love to have a comment, and if you like what you've seen, then please by all means do subscribe to my channel, and I will be back again soon. So see you then. Bye.